Well, once you start translating the game, once you have localization, then just multiply that number by the number of languages. So we got 8 languages. And how many dudes? Now all of a sudden, we need like 190 screenshots.
Yep.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 570 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the weekly podcast for indie game developers. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm enunciating clearly that I am the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam, and I'm the artist.
And we are Butterscotch Shenanigans. Today is April 24th, 2020. Quick!
Yes.
All right, before we get into the meat and potato, just one potato, of today's episode, we got a donation through our Ko-Fi, which you can also reach at moneygrab.bscotch.net. And this came with a message. We're going to read that message. This donation came from Devin Cheney, who said, "During the Levelhead beta, my son was in the NICU. He's fine now."
Good.
Glad to hear that, certainly.
And the game gave me a lot of reprieve. Now with the news of How Many Dudes launch date, it's very likely that we will have baby number 2 by the time it's released.
Hey, congratulations.
Perfect.
Thanks for weirdly always giving me games during this stage of my life. Yeah.
Maybe you should let us know next time that your family's pregnant again, because that way we can know when our
deadline is.
Yeah, we can know our deadline. That's actually
yeah.
a really good way to do it.
And the reason that we're releasing How Many Dudes so quickly is because we realized we released Crash and Sue. We're like, oh shit, Devin didn't have a baby.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We gotta go.
So we got to speed up our dev cycle to increase the probability that the next game comes out when he has a
I mean,
baby.
the other option
100%.
was to slow down and get Crashlands 2 out after another year, but we
didn't want to do that. We were tired.
we were running out of money at that point, so
Yeah.
that was not an option.
Although now I'm realizing Devin a male name typically or not? I've seen it both. I've seen both.
It's both
By
ways.
the way.
in the show Severance. The sister's name is Devin. I had never seen that before.
No,
so now
unclear.
my world's all topsy-turvy. I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
All right, let's talk about the conference that's coming up, Sam. That you're gonna play. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to talk about why is it so hard to finish a game and get it to market, and what is and where are we with How Many Dudes, and what kinds of things are we juggling right now to try to get this thing out the door. So yeah, Sam, let's talk about the How to Market a Game conference.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Yeah. So this is Chris Sikowski, who runs the How to Market a Game blog, which is a great source for indie devs, especially if you read stuff and actually, do things with it. A lot of people read things, but they don't.
Do they though?
Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. I feel like there's a lot of really good knowledge in there about how to approach stuff, or just even a lot of it's just case studies.
And it's also, he does a good job of having like caveats and providing enough context to help you figure out, like, does this apply? How likely is this to be true? How likely is this to be true for me? That kind of stuff, right? And so it's a pretty sober look at all this stuff without any of the selling you a bridge kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And so he runs a conference called the Inside Conference, which has actually been going on. It's like my favorite structure for a conference, which instead of being like in a physical place and also only at a very specific time, it's basically spread out all throughout April, and it's all online stuff. And then the talks are just sort of like randomly whenever it was best for the person to give a talk. And it's mostly him doing Q&A for the first half of the talk, and then the audience doing Q&A for the second half. So there's already been quite a few of them, but if you get tickets for it, you can get the like the VODs basically, right, of these talks. And I'll be giving one the day after this podcast comes out. So on Thursday, the 30th of April at 10 a.m. EST, I'll be talking about How Many Dudes. We'll be looking like the wish list graph, talking about the shorts, all the stuff that we have covered on the podcast. So if you've been listening, the whole time.
So is this like a pre-planned talk that you're giving, or is it more of a sort of
it's
panel
more of
kind of thing?
It's more of just a Q&A thing with him, but I've shared a bunch of data, and we'll be going through all of that kind of
So
stuff.
he has the info to ask you questions about. And
Correct.
Right. It'll be just you and Chris.
Yep. Just the two of us. And interestingly, so the whole focus of it this year is about, he got this term, the Great Conjunction, which is like the fact that currently it seems to be the case that if you make smaller games on Steam, faster turnaround, that audiences are actually looking for this to a large degree, which is, again, the conjunction being player interests and dev interests are actually lined up, it just takes so long to make something, and people actually still like it. And so the whole conference is about games that are made in like under a year. It's kind of the idea. So he's got great talkers. He's got great speakers. The guy from Slots of Daggers is on there. Aramis, who made How to Feed a Black Hole, was giving a talk. There's a bunch of other really good ones. And then I think maybe got Tyler Glale or something like that to talk.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Which, of course, Mugenics took like 10 years before that.
He can't really speak on making games into a year. Well, maybe he did
before that. Yeah, before that he did all the time. That was kind of the focus of it. But yeah, it's really interesting stuff. If you're the audience for this podcast, I feel like it's the same kind of stuff. Cool. how the sausage is made.
So to watch it, you would have to buy
a
ticket.
Yeah, I think you could ticket.
But you can also do that after. Like you can buy a ticket even if the event is done.
It's like ongoing. So yeah, I think you just get a ticket kind of whenever. And I assume you get one afterwards too, because given that they're all like VODs.
Yeah. But do you know if they'll at some point go up for free, kind of like GDC does it, where it's like
I'm assuming at some point. Yeah, I'm assuming at some point they're going to go up kind of on his YouTube channel or something like in a long while. But I'm not sure exactly the details on that. But yeah, so we're going to talk basically tomorrow. If you listen to this on Wednesday, if you want to hop in and see, and otherwise there's lots of other good speakers there too. So
yeah, and that's at howtomarketagame.com/inside.
Yes,
inside.
Check that out. Cool. Well, it's going to be. Yeah, we've done a lot of compiling of sort of records of what's been going on as we've been developing How Many Dudes and keeping track of different sort of key decision points and why we did the things that we did based on the information we had at the time. So yeah, Sam, I assume you'll have quite a bit of interesting data points.
A lot of context. Yes, a lot of context.
All right, let's talk about finishing a game and getting it to market.
Yeah.
Because we got our release date.
Yeah.
And it's not very far away.
And as of right now, as of the time we're recording this episode, we're 97 days to launch, which is just slightly over 3 months. And as we mentioned, I think last episode or a couple episodes ago, so we've finished all the dudes. All 42 dudes are in. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff not yet in there. But we still have to start figuring out our marketing plan and getting things hooked up with our platform partners. So yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about where we're at.
Yeah, well, I think the high level thing is like you'll if you're making a game or if you have made games before, there's this weird thing where I think the beginning is usually very, very fraught, right? Because it's like you're essentially still in a weird pre-production and prototyping phase where you're like, you don't know anything about the game. You're like, is this going to work? How much stuff exactly am I going to need for it?
Yeah, is it going to take 100 years to make?
Exactly. So there's all this just like scope questions and then like just market fit questions. Is this game even going to work? Yada, yada, yada. And we've talked in previous episodes about our approach to those things now, right? Including like doing YouTube shorts to test, seeing if getting any kind of traction on like a YouTube short translates into actual wish lists, etc. So I feel like we have good kind of formulas internally now for that piece that we can bring to the next project. And then there you have like what I think is kind of a nice middle of dev, which is like, yeah, you still have questions about the project, right? About exactly how big it's going to be. But largely the identity has been solidified. You're kind of just like filling out a lot of content and you're answering more of those questions that are like what I would call like medium level questions. They're no longer like, what even is this thing? Where is it going to go? Like what platforms is it going to get?
It's like a fine tuning and you're exploring the space of the game and then looking for little extra things to kind of hook onto and expand it.
Yeah.
You know,
but it's pretty, it feels kind of bounded. Like you can feel the shape of the thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that phase of dev, it's like, it could be a little, you can have a sense a little bit that like you can't see the end, you know, so it could be a long
stuff
while.
Is still solidifying. So there's not the uncertainty that you have at the start, right? But there's still a lot of uncertainty about still just how much and
what else
stuff we have enough, you know, like, and have the things that we've been doing, like, do they actually work? You know?
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of uncertainty there, but it is like you can feel it solidifying, right? Until you hit some point, which we did really recently, where you're like, oh, this is solid. Like we know exactly what this is.
Yes.
We have
All
it
those questions are answered.
All the questions are answered, and now it's the sort of the final content push of filling out the rest of the things and doing that last iteration on polish and balance and tweaking things.
And so this final phase is really weird because, like Adam said, you have on the game side, you have basically finalizing all the stuff. So we now know, for example, like we finished all the dudes, but we have to do, there's a bunch of VFX we have to do for them. And then we have a bunch of enemies left to do and a bunch of bosses left to do. That's essentially it, though, in terms of like.
Well, and achievements is kind of a big thing.
Well,
in the sense that like we have open questions about it that we haven't yet gotten to. So
Right. But then you have simultaneously with this moment, which is like, okay, it feels like we're really close actually to the end. And we are. Like if we could just dedicate all of our time to just finishing just the game, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, probably, right? To get all that stuff in. Not that far.
Yeah, so when you're that close, you want to make sure you've got a release date that is also really close because otherwise you're burning money because it's really expensive to spend an extra month having a game not be launched, right? So you want to get that launch as close to the game is done sort of time point as possible.
But this is where it gets fucking weird because as you're at that point where you can finally see the end in terms of the game shape, you have to actually sort of split it up and space it out based on a completely different set of priorities, which is putting the thing actually on the stores and beginning that pre-launch phase for the game.
Well, I would say this is less of a problem for Steam because we put up our Steam page the week that we started working on the game.
This is more of an issue stuff like achievements, right? So,
right,
which is Steam included, There are these final platform integrations that regardless of how long your page has been up, you still will need to do. But in the case
as well,
cloud save, all this other like integration stuff.
Yeah, then you got your final localization round too, right? Which is that because you kind of compute back from your release date. You're like, okay, well, if we're releasing on this day, we want to make sure we have our golden build or whatever this many days in advance because you have to account for delays with Apple review if you're going to launch on the App Store, and if you're on any console review, and so you want to give yourself enough room to deal with them that you want to have a build submitted to them already like 2 weeks in advance so that you're like, well, we got something in the pipe at least, right? So you basically start back computing all these things. Be like, okay, well, that means that localization has to be done here in order for us to actually have releases sent to the stores by there. And they have to have gone through QA and that takes this much time. So basically you work yourself back from that deadline to figure out when all of these both production and publishing, storefront management stuff, when all of those have to take place. And in our case right now, we don't have mobile pages up. Right. And so part of what we're trying to do is get the mobile pages up as soon as possible. Right. Which is related to all these other problems about release, but it's also its own kind of problem, right? That we have to try to get sorted out. Yeah. So all this stuff is happening at the same time. We're winding down dev while we're winding up publishing.
Yeah. Now you might be wondering, what's so hard about this? You just need to take some screenshots, put them up on the mobile page, right? As with literally all things in game dev, the problem with this is localization.
Localization and platforms.
And platforms
is the two. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. But the even with the platforms, so
the thing that blows it up is localization.
Yeah, localization is a multiplier. So if you're on Steam, it's like, you get your screenshots, basically 16 by 9, just kind of like a typical monitor size. You take your 5+ screenshots, you got them, right? Same thing with Google Play, 16 by 9. You take your 5 screenshots.
You can use them for phones and tablets. They're like whatever, it's fine. Great.
Yeah. So you got it. So depending on your game, you might even be able to use the same 5 screenshots between Steam and Google Play,
which we are able to do.
Yeah,
right. Easy.
On iOS though, they've got pretty strict requirements about. Because they want to show different screenshots depending on if you're looking at the game on an iPad, you're looking at it on an iPhone, so that the aspect ratio and pixel size of the screenshots exactly match the device that you're on. Which means you got to upload several different sizes of screenshots for the App Store.
At least 2, because if your game is on a phone and a tablet, you need at least 2 different ones, and those are not the same They are not the same dimensions as what you would be uploading on Google Play or
so
on
they're
Steam.
so
They are
you
unique.
need your 1920 by 1080 and 2 other aspect ratios.
So again, that's kind of like, okay, so I just need to take one set of screenshots. I'm good for Google Play and Steam, and then 2 more sets of screenshots for
different
iOS.
aspect
No
ratios.
problem. That's 15 screenshots. No big
Or
deal.
yeah,
right?
3 times however many screenshots you're going to
Yeah.
do. Right?
If I'm doing the bare minimum and just throwing up 5.
Yeah,
right?
more likely you're going to do like something like 8 or 10. Right?
Yeah. So, all right. So like 20, 25, 24 screenshots or whatever. Well, once you start translating the game, once you have localization, then just multiply that number by the number of languages. So we got 8 languages. And how many dudes? Now all of a sudden, we need like 190 screenshots.
Yep.
And you don't want to have to, if we imagine the manual process of this, let's say I'm in the studio and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take some time today and just going to grab some screenshots. All right, so I need to get like a cool battle scene, maybe in like the iceberg, the blue area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I set up my battle scene. I go in there. I take the screenshot. All right, 1 down, 23 to go, right? And then I go back, change the language, go back in, rerun the battle, screenshot. Do that 8 times. Then I change the aspect ratio. Do it again 8 times. Change the aspect ratio. Do it again. And I have to do that 3 rounds, right?
And you got to hope then that the screenshots that you got are good because they're actually different. Every single one of them is different now, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't. There's no locking.
Yeah.
And so now it's like some of them, because again, a screenshot is a piece of art. So like sometimes the composition gets a little weird. It's a game. So like all the shit's moving around, right?
Yep.
It might be the case that like some of those are just they're not doing what you want them to do. And now you're like, okay, shit.
And this is part of why on mobile you see these patterns on mobile screenshots where people will do whatever the store will let them get away with, right? So you'll see a lot of like extra stuff added on top of the screenshot to the extent that that's allowed, so that people can kind of hide stuff by basically kind of padding out the overall dimensions of the screenshot with an overlay that's just like basically marketing copy, where it's like 100 enemies or whatever,
Or they'll have the screenshot. It'll be like an image of a phone with the game on the phone, and they do that because then they can just like crop the image and like superimpose it onto an iPad or whatever.
Which is then hilarious because it like this is why all these things are so dumb, right? Because then it doesn't do what Apple's like, you have to have these in these resolutions so that when people look at it, it looks like they expect it to look on their device, right?
And then it doesn't.
And then it doesn't because it's a fucking picture of a phone, right? What are we doing?
And this also still doesn't solve the that sort of superimposing the image onto a device image solution solves the aspect ratio problem, but that's the easier problem, right?
And like so for like Crash Dance 2, we intentionally had as many screenshots as we could that had no UI elements, but kind of period, because then we don't have as many. Because now we can also crop stuff rather than reshoot it, right? And then there's nothing that has to be localized, so we can just do it once as much as possible, right? But How Many Dudes is a UI game. It's all UIs all the time, right? Every single shot of anything you take has got some text in it.
In a variety of them, you could get away with hiding it, right? So some, like the battle scenes, you could hide it. But those aren't really like the main ones that are a problem anyways, because they usually just have like a word at the top right. So like we could get away with fully hiding the UI during those. That would be a problem, but you still have the other half of the screenshots basically like in the ranch, trinkets, like flyer, like all these ones have a lot of text on them. There's no way to fully get around solving this problem without doing the text stuff, right? In some capacity. Yeah. So basically what we're looking at then is like, okay, you're at this moment where you're like, again, as a person who's making the game, you're like, man, I just want to fucking finish this. Like I just need time, just need some focused time, just a few weeks, and I can be done, like thinking about these things that are unfinished with regards to the game, right? Simultaneously with that, you have to basically pause and actually insert a bunch of these other things because of how all these timelines back up. And so we're basically at a point where it's like, to get our store pages up, we have to get updated capsule art done, right? We have
What is capsule art for those who may
You can
not
think
know
about
the
it's
term.
promo art, capsule art. It's like, so on Steam, you'll see all the different formats of feature art, right? So when you're on the homepage, it looks a certain way. When you're in a library, it looks a certain way. Every single platform has
Yeah,
those.
so the capsule is
in
sort
various
of like
forms.
it's like the little image that you'll see maybe like on Steam next to the game's name in a list or that.
Yeah, and
that
same
kind of
thing.
thing.
Refer to it the same way on the App Store or Google Play. But all these are all different dimensions. Part of what what we built with LudoKit helps manage that complexity, including the language problem, right? But like we want to get final capsule art done. We need to get enough of those VFX done so we can do those final shots. We just have to get all this stuff done just so we can stand the store pages.
Yeah, and we need a round of Loc done because every screenshot has text in it. And
Yes. And so you're trying to run all this stuff in parallel. And simultaneously with that, like, at least I know for me, I don't know, Seth, if it feels the same for you, but it's like when we're so close to being like done, like on a content
with the
thing,
game.
with the game, it's like, it just
really
makes me feel
annoying.
crazy. Yes,
It's annoying to have to be like, yeah, I know, like we're like 95% done with the game, but fuck that. We'll go work on all this other stuff instead.
Yeah, and like send all these
it puts an
emails
itch
and,
in
like-
your brain. We're just like,
Yep.
But priority wise, it's what you have to do because you got to think about parallelization, not
Yes.
parallelization, which can
feels
happen.
the same, to be honest, like in some cases.
Yeah, and so for example, we don't have the current content of the game translated, localized, because we've added tons of stuff and we rewrote every single tooltip because we've updated how the tooltips are formatted and we made tons of changes.
Yeah. So even though the demo is localized, literally every single string that is in the demo
It's all different now.
is different. And of course, there are a bajillion new strings.
Yeah. So even if we did solve the problem of how do you take all these screenshots, which we have solved, and we'll talk about that. How do you take all these screenshots with different text? We don't even have the text.
Yep.
So we need to sort of so we need to get all the text into our localization system, and we need to audit that text, send it off to our localization team, and then it'll take them a couple of weeks to get everything translated.
Yeah, because at this point it's like 20,000 words probably. So
it's getting up there. Yeah. And so while that sort of translation round is happening, we kind of do everything else to prepare for what we're going to do once we have the text, whether that's like planning out trailer shots or developing tools to help us manage all this stuff. And then once we get that text back, then we kind of start that next round. So that's kind of the process we're in right now, is wrapping up all of the text. And thankfully we don't have controller support, and we also don't even have keyboard commands visible on screen, because there's an extra layer to this that I forgot about, which is the input problem, which is, say, like on Steam, if you have like keyboard and mouse, you can just take our screenshots with keyboard and mouse. But you also need to like change what inputs are displayed. Let's say you're on the Switch.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you can't
for
just
Crashlands 2 for Xbox, or I guess because we were originally planning to potentially be on Xbox with Crashlands 2.
Yeah.
And so we had to make sure that we had screenshots with keyboard and mouse, or with keyboard and mouse, and the same screenshots with controller.
Xbox controller
Xbox
icons.
specifically. Because all the consoles are real fucking picky about what you're showing, and you have to show their branded versions of all their controls and stuff.
And so it's a combination of aspect ratios, the screenshot itself, languages, and input modes, right? So in how many dudes we don't have controller support, and it's all so thankfully we kind of cut that part out. But the solution we have to this problem is something we started doing in Levelhead, because Levelhead had 12 languages and it was on 7 stores. This was the biggest version of this problem we've ever had, and it was on Switch, Xbox.
It was on Xbox.
It was on
It was on
everything.
everything. Yep.
It had every conceivable combination. So we had to take well over 800 screenshots for Levelhead. So what we do at this point in dev is we develop an auto screenshotter tool. So what it does is you'll just at any point in the game, you'll be like, oh, yep, it's time for my screenshot. This is a good scene or whatever. You press a button, and then a little text box pops up, and it's like, what is this screenshot? Give it a name. You might be like big battle or whatever, right?
That also lets you confirm that, like, because it's basically a pause. It's not just taking a
Yeah,
shot.
Yeah, so you can kind of like move that text box aside and kind of look at the freeze frame and be like,
because it is going to take a while once you hit go, to get all those screenshots.
And so you start taking your screenshots, or you hit confirm, and then what it does is it starts with the first aspect ratio, which is usually like whatever you're currently playing in. Takes a screenshot, saves it in a folder named after language. You know,
so it'd be like big battle _ Ian, like
Ian,
English or
whatever.
Yep.
Yep. And so then it swaps the language, takes another screenshot, swaps the language, takes another screenshot, does that for all 8 languages, then change the aspect ratio. Cycles through every language, takes a screenshot. So it now goes down to one single button, give it a name, hit enter, and now you've got your 25, 30, whatever screenshot variations of that one scene.
But it's the same moment, so you don't have to be like, how do I recreate this exact moment again? But,
Exactly.
You know,
yeah. Or if you do need to recreate it, you just can, and you just push the button again, and then you're fine. Yep. And so that's the solution that we use for that. We still need to manage sort of getting all the screenshots like vetted and then put onto the stores and
because that is a part of the process too. Because like you mentioned, it's a truly staggering number of screenshots that even with a tool is very labor intensive. Without a tool, incredibly labor intensive. But that's not even mentioning the iteration part, right? Which is just like with anything else in your marketing, you need to do a round of feedback, see if it's hitting the target, right? And note any adjustments that you might want to make, and whatever. So then you're not just taking those screenshots once. You're taking them.
You'll have to go retake a bunch of them, or maybe even all of them. So
I do want to mention, because I think what's interesting about this is I think when a lot of indie devs in particular, when they're looking for publishers, are thinking about how a publisher is going to interact with you, and you're thinking about this kind of problem, this kind of work. I know, at least in my mind, it was always like, oh, publishers will have a solution for this, right?
This is a developer problem.
It's a developer problem. They will never have a solution for you, actually.
If they have a solution, it's throw a bunch of people at it or throw a bunch of time at it, right?
Yes.
And that's the only thing they could do if they didn't have a tool like this.
Yeah, because to be clear, this is built into the game, because the only way to do it
has to be.
It has to be, right? Or unless the game has some externally controlled. But no matter what you do, the game has to be responsive to the ability to be changed, to basically pause everything and dynamically flip through resolutions.
So you got to be thinking about this capability pretty early in dev, because going back and trying to sort of retroactively allow the game to do this kind of thing can be an insane amount of work. I think for Levelhead, it actually took probably like a week to make this type of a tool. And with Crashlands 2, it did as well, because Crashlands 2 had way more different interfaces. Yeah, that were kind of standalone that needed to be evaluated and updated. How many dudes it's an interface based game, but because of that, then a lot of the code around the interface is pretty tight. Like, it's pretty clean and easy to kind of integrate into something like this. So we got that done, thankfully, and we're starting our next localization round soon. We still need to figure out stuff like achievements and kind of come up with all of those, and then hook them into the game and test them and get them all hooked up to the store. And Adam's Ludo Kit tool that he's been working on, we talked about in the past, is we got some achievement stuff kind of happening in there,
percolating.
That'll help us work on this.
It's got achievements manager is now drafted, so that basically you can configure all your achievements in one spot and put their names and descriptions. You don't have to ask any questions like, what are the length limits on whatever. It's just all baked in, right? And it's got an icon builder so that you can build out all your icons across all your achievements also, and then get them exported in whatever formats and sizes and whatever you need.
Whatever zany bullshit you need for the various.
And so the last bit that I'm working on right now is having it be also the translation hub, so that you can export your achievement text for localization, get it back, get it on that system, and then get stuff exported for the different storefronts. Which, tedious stuff that we always have to do at this point too. And it's easy. We always find ourselves with achievements scrambling for at various parts of it, because it's the thing that kind of happens last.
Too many pieces,
and it's got too many pieces, right?
Yeah, so too many pieces.
So because you're like, oh shit, we also have to localize it, right? And
you need a unique piece of art for each one. Which, again, even if you're just reusing stuff, which is what I would recommend always, but even if you are just reusing it, you still have to assemble the fucking thing.
You gotta do it, and you gotta have a grayscale version so that on Steam you can upload both, right? Some stores only have one version and they auto grayscale it for you or do something to it. Some require 2 images, and so then and Steam specifically requires 2 and just tells you the second one should be grayscale. And it's like, okay, why don't you just
Are they
fucking
going to
do
check
for us,
that? Like, could you upload one that's
They do.
not
They don't
gray?
require it, or do they? I don't think they require it to be gray.
They
I mean, it'd be easy to check
they?
because they could just have something that scans the image and looks for anything that's not gray. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
But why not just do it?
Well, it's also
Just
true,
do
like,
it for
a lot of these ones, I think the Steam one included, I think it only accepts JPEG, which is honestly so fucking annoying because I'm like, look, you guys, because some of them are like PNGs only, some are JPEG. So then
Yeah,
you have to
this
have 2 different sets. You just, man, come on, just put a
the
converter.
point
in there.
here is that, like, with any
Yeah,
of
and
these
different
things,
sizes. You need a different size for every platform.
Yes.
Yeah. So with any of these things, it's that every platform you're launching on has a completely standalone, bespoke set of tasks that looks very similar to another set of tasks for another
Mhm.
platform, but different in all of the key ways that make it so that you literally can't reuse anything. So
Yep.
You just got to do the same work over and over and over again.
We were just setting up getting some of the mobile backend stuff set up, and one of them was these short descriptions, which we needed. There's like 3 different ones we needed between Apple and Google.
And also on Google for some promo stuff that we're doing with them, they wanted
that was one of them.
other ones also. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was like, I think the character counts. Okay,
Yeah. There's a 30
For-
character one,
30, 37.
37, 50.
Which, just as an aside, it's almost insulting to call something that's 30 characters long a description. Even if you call it a short description, like,
Yeah.
that's
It's 3
like
words.
2
You know what I
words.
mean?
Yeah.
It's not
So,
even
yeah.
a byline, It's,
Some
it's
game
fucking-
titles won't even fit in that.
Yeah, so
You
it's,
know?
it was 30, 37, and then I think 50?
Yeah,
Was
there's
it
a
another
50 and then a 90 or an 80.
A 9.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 80, and then 80. So you have these 4, and again, these are characters we're talking about.
Are these
So-
all on the
and-
same platform?
This is
No.
between the platforms.
Between the
platforms.
two.
Okay.
Some of them, like the 30 and 37, were the same platform,
Yeah,
which was the crazy one.
Yeah, that was Google. No, Google had
Yeah.
37 and 50, where it's 2, where I'm like, those are the same number.
Oh, okay.
In terms
Right,
of the number of characters.
Yeah, and then Apple had 30 and 80.
Apple has 30 in the
Yeah.
DA or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're just, again, it's like, man, just annoying as hell. Because you'll spend some time on these, be like, okay, how do I get this right? And then you pop over to the other platform, and it doesn't fit anymore. Because
Like,
like,
you gotta
chop
Shave
off
off
like,
5 characters,
you're
or all of a sudden
like,
you got 20
my
extra
God.
characters, which is still nothing. But when you just spent all this time trying to constrain something down into
Yep.
30, and now you're like, ooh, I guess I really should have to. It's like twice as many characters. I guess I have to
Yep.
rethink
Yeah.
this now.
Yep. So
And then it all has to go off to localization, and those character limits are tight. They're tight.
so
Yeah,
tight.
the translators have to then be like, okay, now I got to translate this.
Yeah, now they have to translate a perfectly constrained, like exactly character matching English source
Into
if you- If
German.
you try to do that in German or in Spanish,
Good luck.
Where every
good
word
fucking
in
luck.
German is 235 characters. So, I mean, good luck.
Yeah,
with
German
that
and Spanish both, on average, like the same text, quote unquote same text, right? They're basically 30% longer, right?
Mhm.
So when you're in these extremely constrained things, but also none of the platforms are very clear about, because everything's very English centric, right? And so they just say, oh yeah, it's an 80 character limit. But is it bytes or Unicode characters, right?
It's
They don't
characters
tell you
for
which
sure.
one that is.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, when we send this off to Chinese and every one of those characters is 3 bytes. Because like there is one platform that it is actually bytes. I can't remember which one it is,
Oh,
but
really?
but they don't. I think it's Epic, maybe I can't remember. But yeah, I was trying to find this information to be like, is
That's
it really,
even worse. That's
is it really
basically
40
saying, that's basically saying, I want you to do this in language, but constrained by a thing that is not language, right? Which is
Yeah, or that,
very
that you
confusing.
as a person can't even see, right? Because and this is why like best practice for anything like this is to say if you have a limit, it's the limit that a person understands when they're looking at it, right? But once you introduce Unicode, have because also different languages will you'll shove accents on top of a thing, right? Those are actually different Unicode characters even too, right? So now you'll have 6 bytes and 2 Unicode characters to make what looks to you like one character, right? And the question is again, like my assumption at this point in my life, having programmed and dealt with languages and Unicode so much myself for all the stuff that we do, my assumption now, anytime I hit one of those things, is that they did not do it right because I've almost never seen it done right. And it's really hard to do right. It's truly difficult to do right. And because again, everything is so English centric, and because the people who built this stuff don't fucking think about it. They
They're
don't
not
think
shipping.
about it.
They're not shipping games in the context.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah,
They just
They're
don't
not
think
using
about
the tool; they just make it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's just a nightmare on top of a nightmare, as you go through it.
yeah, I mean, this basically where we're at, which is like this final stage it's so weird because it's very exciting because as you're finishing things, you're like finishing things. You know what I mean? Like we finished, it's like, yeah, we call it like the draft of the 482 dudes because we're always tweaking the balance, but like they're all in. And then like this week we knocked out a bunch of the VFX that was missing. So like the ranger actually has like an arrow, that they shoot. The caveman throws an actual boulder, like that sort of thing. There's all these pieces that were just like placeholders that are almost all gone now, right? So at least that base level of game feels like it's like really in. And you're really at this point where you're like, it's so close. And I feel like I should be so excited, but I'm just like, feel like I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions. Now we're trying to finish this from a production standpoint and a publishing standpoint. And oh my God, I could see why people go insane and they're just like throw up their hands and they're like, give me a publisher. Who then
and if somebody's listening to this and like, well, why don't you guys get a publisher, or why don't you just like have somebody on the team whose job it is just like all of these marketing things, right? And the reason for that is essentially that a publisher takes like a third of your money. So
yes.
if you
could also just instead scale up our team by 30%, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other issue then is like, okay, so that's if you're doing it sort of externally, working with an external company, they're going to take a bunch of your money, and we don't want to do that. And if you hire somebody internally as sort of this is their full-time job is marketing and managing, all this stuff, there's kind of two issues with that. One is these things are not isolated. So like when we're talking about this screenshot problem,
it requires dev time.
Yeah. It's not just about taking the screenshots and uploading them. It's well, there's like a taste side of it too, which is like knowing how you want to convey the game and what types of screenshots to take, and blah blah blah, which I think requires like familiarity with
someone
the game.
Still needs to decide the shot direction, basically, right?
Yeah.
Someone needs to build a tool to take the shots. At least in our case, we're not going to do it manually, and then someone needs to assess: are these shots that we've taken, do they meet whatever kind of like vision we have for this store page that seems like it's going to work? So in other words, even if you have someone else doing parts of it, you are going to be involved, right?
Yeah.
There's no way to not be involved. And I think that's a big
and we do,
and we want to be
our
involved.
team hand off a lot of the labor, right? As in like historically, Sam will put
100%.
together a shot list of like, here's what I think we need. And then we'll have the QA team, because the QA team knows the games inside and out, so they can quickly, create the situations that Sam has asked for, right? And take screenshots of them. And they have the most sort of absorbable time where we could be like, okay, well, because especially at this point, like the game is extremely well tested. And so switching them off temporarily from like really aggressive testing onto this kind of labor intensive marketing prep stuff,
which is kind of different from like a lot of studios will, their QA team will be the busiest before launch because they're crunching and they've let bugs pile up throughout development without fixing them. And then QA and everybody else, their hair is on fire in the months leading up to launch. We don't operate that way. Like for us, development gets a bit more calm as we approach launch, which we've learned our lesson in the past. It's like,
but what that does, it does exactly, because all these rules are cyclical in terms of when you need to be doing what, right? And by making sure we're doing things in that way, then QA's time is the most intensely used kind of in the middle, right? For actual QA. Because that's when that's when the most is happening, right? And because at the very beginning, a lot's happening, stuff is changing really fast, but none of it really is expected to work very well, right? So
at the beginning, we basically just say, only tell us if it crashes.
Yeah, that's
like, tell us if something crashes, because then you literally can't play the game at all.
Yeah, but in the middle of QA is testing, they're testing everything, because now we're like, okay, this is shaping up to be what the game is supposed to be, so we need all the feedback. And so by the time we get to the end, then like the big thing that's kind of left at the end is again all the publishing related QA, which is like final cert testing, which is basically going down the checklist for each platform and then checking what the platform's going to check so that we know we can get through without any issue and all that kind of stuff, right? But the game at that point is extremely well tested already, which means we can shunt off that human time onto other kinds of problems. And so that's a lot of how we have designed our whole pipeline and workflow to allow at the very end here to have this freed up human time to handle stuff like screenshots.
Well, and that was kind of my second point, is that cyclical nature of things. Like if you do hire somebody as, okay, their job is marketing, they're going to be responsible for like all of the managing all the assets and talking to all the platform. When I say marketing, I mean like getting the game known and onto these platforms, right? Then that tends to happen at the end.
Yep.
And at the beginning,
it can only really happen like in a couple phases, right? Like when you first put up your store page, and then like maybe demo.
Well, especially if you're doing more traditional marketing, where you have like beat-based moments, and where you're otherwise really private about what's going on, because then you're doing these like constant build-ups into something, right? And we would even within our own studio, we actually took more of that model for Crashlands 2, where I had a lot of the responsibility for ensuring that the marketing stuff was happening.
Yes.
While having no ability to do it. Right? So and that was even within our team. And so we got to experience that really concretely, that idea of like, okay, there's a person who's like technically in charge of this, but has the responsibility but no power, right? So I can't be like, hey, we need to shift how we're doing things so that I can get this thing to make this marketing thing happen or whatever, right? That's a really hard sell if you're trying to convince a development team to do that.
Well, this is kind of the, like, we keep things small, so we're a team of 7 full time, right? And we're doing that because each of us has a high degree of ownership and stake in the thing that we're making, and also when it comes to stuff like getting the game onto a platform or whatever, then like each of us is involved in that somehow, whether it's like developing stuff in the game to be able to capture the screenshots, actually capturing the screenshots, coming up with them. And then on the technical side, we have Sure, who's our platform specialist. So he's taking care of all these different aspects of making sure that the game is running in a stable way for those platforms, and that we have various like SDK integrations and all these different things.
Meeting all of their various eligibility things for the programs they do, like Google's Level Up program or whatever else. Like there's so many things, right, that you got to do to have a successful publishing on like one of these platforms, right?
Yeah.
And the fewer people on your team, in some ways, it's the most efficient way to do it, right? You don't have someone like in Adam's case being like, I know all the things that we need to do, and I cannot do any of them, so now I need to go ask people,
bug people
to do that, right? Yeah. And so production or like publishing becomes a shared activity that the whole team does, right? Because that is actually what publishing is. I think that's really important. It's like fully publishing a game requires art, it requires programming, it requires design, right? It requires QA, which is weird to think about, but like that's the reality of like,
and it requires
publishing it.
It requires a production from like the being a producer concept, right? Of like people who figure out when and how and resource allocation, right? It requires basically every role within
is involved,
the studio
right?
is involved in, or should be involved in publishing, right? And if they're not, then basically what that means, you're going to have, and as a studio gets bigger, then this gets more complicated because you can't really have all those people putting their hands in the publishing.
Well, this is where things fall apart, And so I was just chatting with Adam and Sam before the podcast about. So I haven't been playing WoW for a couple of months now because I've just been playing How Many Dudes. I've got I'm pushing like 500 hours.
500 hours.
Just since end of December. And so, but I've been kind of just keeping up with what's been going on in WoW because I do, plan on picking it up again once my time frees up a bit. And they released an expansion 8 weeks ago, and a new expansion is a big deal because it changes like everything, tons and tons of things change. And then just this past Tuesday, so 8 weeks later, they released their mid-season content update. They're like, ooh, and they've been saying like, we're doing an 8-week update cycle. Because they want to keep that engagement high, line must go up and just keep pumping out content. But this is kind of to the point of like, when you have a larger organization where people making decisions about things are actually disconnected from the work necessary to do that thing, this is where the company gets out over its skis and then just fucking face plants, And so what has happened in this past week is at the same time as so they released this update, and essentially every new feature that they released was broken.
Like broken.
And I don't
not like
jank.
Jank is one thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jank is one thing.
So
broken.
As a simple example, there's this new kind of token thing that if you kill a boss, you can use that token and it'll give you a piece of loot. So if you weren't lucky enough to get loot from the boss because of, only a few pieces dropped or something like that, you could be like, I'm going to spend my token on this boss and get that loot. Those tokens, you can only get them, I think, like one per week or something like that. So they're a finite resource.
Very finite. Yeah.
So people were like, "Oh yeah, this is great. New patch. I'm gonna kill a boss. I'm gonna get my loot. I'm gonna use my token." People use their tokens. Nothing happened. It consumed the token.
You're locked out.
Token's
for a week.
gone. Can't kill the boss again until next week. And that's just one of hundreds of things that were just fully broken. And these things were reported to them because they have a public test run where players can play it and be like, "Oh yeah, this shit's broken." And they tell them about it. And nothing that was reported got fixed. Just nothing. They accumulated thousands of bug reports and they were like, "Meh," and they just shipped it anyway. And they shipped it because they're on a directive from the higher ups to be on an 8-week update cycle. They have to do it. They have to release every 8 weeks. That's it. And then there's a separate department who is their billing department, who's like, "Oh yeah, we got a new patch coming out. That's the perfect time to release a price increase." because
it's like, we're doing
it's new
more
content.
things.
Look,
Right,
we just delivered a bunch of great stuff. So right after the patch comes out, they make a bunch of announcements in like a bunch of different countries. Hey, we're increasing the price because of exchange rate stuff. So in countries, I think it's like Turkey had like a 70% price increase on the monthly subscription. Pretty big price increases in various places. Right at the same time as this patch comes out, it just fully breaks the game. Right. And again, it's because you got different departments that are all loosely involved in the discussions and the timing around things, but the amount of ownership that any one person has over the process is essentially zero.
Yeah.
It's just people just passing the buck all over the place. And then when that spirals out of control like this, you just end up with these just insanely sloppy, kind of incoherent things happening where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, right? So that's where we're like, we could bring in more people. We could like have people who supposedly like their whole sole job is marketing or getting the game to market, but like in our experience, it's an integrated process. Everybody's involved.
It's really hard to hand off. It's really hard to hand off. I think there's what we've learned over the years is which parts are possible to hand off, right? So again, like putting together press releases, scraping lists of influencers and stuff like that, managing all that stuff. I do think it'd be great if we could do that in house. I actually do think it would be great, but at the same time, because of the phased nature of it, it needs to happen a couple times per project, and it is possible to farm it out. So it's
one of those like labor intensive. Because the question for any of these things that have to happen for a game's development and release, right, is how much does a person need to know about everything, right? And for something like a press release, it's like we can hand off bullet points of like, hey, these are the things to hit, right? But even something like that is really risky, right? Because you want to read that copy that person writes, and you want to edit it because otherwise, you know what the hell's going to ship, and the thing that's going to ship is going to have like the name of a character slightly wrong, or like right, and so none of it, in my opinion, is fully handoffable.
No,
fully, right?
It's
to
still,
an external party.
Well, it's true of everything.
It's all managed. It's all managed.
Yeah, and it's even like stuff in the game. Like anytime, and I may go in and I may play the game over the weekend and be like, I need to fix these things or whatever, and I'll make some changes. But I always make them in a way that they're revertible, and I always then talk through them with Sam when we start work again on Monday, because invariably I was wrong about some portion of it, or I missed something or didn't think about something, and then got to go back and make some updates, or even just rip something out because it's like, yeah, it turned out it was just a bad idea, you know? Yeah, so there's nothing that happens in the studio that just gets handed off with no oversight, you know? And so, yeah, bringing in more people just means more oversight. You just,
But it also is
you
something
got to
that,
check
like,
in more.
Like, but it's also something that is good and useful, right? Because you want to be able to spread the tasks out as much as you can, right? But you're trying to find that balance of, because you don't want to be doing literally everything if you can help it, right? And you don't want to fully hand off anything either, right? And so what you're trying to do as you're growing a team is figuring out, like, how do I find that balance of, and for us, that's why we've increasingly just had everything in-house, where we kind of figure out how to do something and then eventually find somebody and then have them do it in-house, because that gives them the full integration, full context, and they're doing it all the time. They're involved with the stuff that's going on in the studio all of the time, right?
And even the contractors we have, whether it's like our on the kind of publishing side with like Recoup, who handles our the influencer stuff, or Anne, who does tons of our art, like in How Many Dudes does all the relic art currently, and working on some capsule art and stuff. Like even those people they're actually they're very integrated into the team, right? With their time with us, they're
in our Discord server, in our studio Discord server, you know?
Yeah, like they're all up to par on like how exactly to handle production stuff. Like it's not.
We think of all of our relationships as long term.
Yes,
you know, and
right. So there's essentially training involved. I guess maybe that's the easier way. Like there's training involved with any external party to actually make it so that they are as integrated as is possible, even if they're not full time.
Yeah, it's not even like training. I think that's also something that we let ourselves astray with in the earlier days, where we thought of it as like, oh yeah, we got to bring somebody in and train them up, right? But what actually happens is you bring somebody in, feel the impact of like having a new entity involved somehow, and then you adapt processes and develop new ones and work with them in collaboration to find some way to basically get them the knowledge, information, all the stuff that they need to know to be able to work with you. But then you are also doing the same, right? And this is also why it's really hard to work with. Like we've had nothing but a bad experience working with bigger, sort of well-oiled machines, I'll say, but
just large
also being
entities,
critical of like the idea that they are working efficiently, right?
Yeah.
But when we work with a big entity, like a really big like QA house or something like that, right? A third party, they have ways of doing things, right? And they don't integrate with what you're doing,
whatever your brew is,
your brew is. Yeah. And so our experience with those has always been just terrible, right? Because there's no meaningful long-term connection. People are switching out all the time, right? And even when you have somebody for a while, they're not allowed to, like, you're often not even allowed to like talk to any of the people doing the actual work, right? There's somebody in the middle through whom everything goes. And you just completely lose on the ability to have a meaningfully integrated kind of experience.
Yeah, and the integration, like always, is it's both the hard part about all the game stuff. It's the very hard part at the end, because everything has to be integrated all at once, as opposed to being able to kind of stagger it, you know. And I think with regards to these relationships, it's the same thing. It's like the more integrated you can have, even concept artist, capsule artist who comes on for a little bit, even if they're just like a month while they're working on something. The more you can have them in the team, the better the work becomes, and the more they understand the contours of everything. And then if you can work with them again, ideally, the goal is always again, because, oh my God, the amount of work it requires to find someone who's good is a lot.
We even had, as we were talking about, like, should we be doing controller support for the game for launch? And we had a conversation about like, well, could we just bring in a contractor to add controller support to the game, before launch? And, at the end of the day, we're like, well, probably not, right? Because like the amount of time it would take to bring that person in, get them familiar with our code base, and the amount of oversight kind of necessary to make sure that they're integrating controller support in a way that's consistent with the way that we want to do it, and we have historically done it in the past, where it's very dynamic and responsive, and
that would probably build forward effectively, so we could leverage it in the next project. It essentially would requires actually a full-time position in order to get that particular thing.
Yeah, it's not something you just kind of do real quick. You know?
You would want
Exactly.
somebody who has been working on the project for 6 months already, right? Who
Yeah.
has really good design sense and like understand, like, and is very autonomous. Like, you're talking about
Just another
full-time.
game programmer.
a full-time integrated game programmer.
Yeah, maybe one who kind of leans more on the UI UX side.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, you're right. You might have a more diversified role to make that happen, right? But but you're talking, and again, and we just see that over and over and over again. Anytime there's any aspect of the work that we're like, oh god, it'd be so nice to not have to do this. You, and
But
by
nothing's
you, I
free.
mean your very well constructed long term team, right? Ultimately, does have to do it.
Yeah, and you're better for it because there's this like you don't want to vibe code. You know what I mean? Which is like if you have no idea how something works because you've never looked at it, you never tried to do it, you got no insight into the process, right? And then you bring on somebody else to do it. You at that point you have to just trust that they're doing it the right way because you can't understand what they're doing, right? So if you bring in if you made your first game and you bring in a publisher to get your game onto the store, you probably feel like you're really getting your money's worth because like what they're doing is incomprehensible to you.
But you can't tell which ones actually add value and which ones are kind of smoke and mirrors,
Yeah, and you don't know what they could have done differently or whether they're even doing a good job. You just have to kind of trust it. And so that's what I mean when it's like the vibe code, model of business, right? Of like bring in people to do things that you genuinely don't understand and just hope it works out. Which our preference is to, of course, do things ourselves, learn about it, and try to develop the tool set to evaluate whether we can offload it, whether we should offload it. And if we do offload it, then we can also evaluate what's going on with all of that and give feedback and guidance and stuff.
Make sure that whatever integrations we have with external partners have high visibility into what's going on, allow us to discuss things, and all that.
Well, they don't become a burden. That's the goal, because the reality is like you're trying to offload stuff so you don't have to do it. And a lot of times you end up actually just sort of managing information or being a switchboard operator almost to the same degree that you'd be just doing that work in the first place. If you have
and the way that
work.
you found a really good internal or external, a partner to help with stuff, and that you're doing a good job dealing with it. Because you can also find a really good employee or third party and then just do a shit job of helping them do the work, right? So but the way that you know that both of those things are working is if you're having really, if what you're doing is having what feels like collaborative design level kinds of and feedback kinds of discussions where it's not that like, oh, this thing that I got is crap, then that never happens, but oh, this isn't hitting what I was expecting. Like this isn't quite landing the way I thought it was going to. Round of feedback, and that's the level that stuff is operating, and that's how you can tell that it was good. Right? But those are rare to be able to build internally because it's not just oh hey, go hire somebody, you solve the problem, right? It's incredibly hard to find a person who you can work well with, who fits.
It's just the fit. Yes, the fit is really hard.
And whether it's internal or third party that you treat as much as you can as internal, the ultimate barrier is still who are you? Who is that person? How good at this stuff are you? And how good at collaborating are you? Right? Yeah. And that is always a challenge. But if you're working with a third party, there are other barriers in the way, right? To be able to do that successfully.
Yeah. And I do want to still acknowledge like there are times when maybe like you just need to get the game out.
Yeah.
And you don't have the time, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the people, whatever. And you're just like, I gotta get a publisher because like, or maybe even I think in a case because like Bellatra was made by like one guy, right? And he had never released a game before.
Oh yeah, again, all the stuff we're talking about, so many things, right? So you may not want to do any part of it.
Well, and if you're in like I think he was working a full-time job, so it's like how's he gonna spend all this time figuring out all this shit that we just talked about?
Because there's the practical. I mean, everything is a practical question, right? And and ultimately you got to get a game out, but that doesn't mean just find a publisher. Period. Correct. You still
know
have
what
to
they are doing for you.
Find a good publisher. Know what they're doing. No. So you still have to understand what it is that has to happen.
Yes.
And you have to have a good sense of what it means for that stuff to have been done well. Because if you don't have those two things, even if you're not going to do them, right, then you cannot evaluate anything that's happening. You can't evaluate the contracts you're looking at. You can't evaluate.
Easy to be
the
taken
work that's
advantage
done.
of. So many predatory publishers. It's just
And there
ridiculous.
are far more publishers. There's 3 categories of publisher. There's good ones that aren't actually accomplishing anything but aren't bad, and then bad ones, right? Most publishers fall into those two categories. They don't fall into a good publisher, meaning somebody who really does the stuff well, and as far as those things can then do something that does something, right? Most publishers are not that, and so if you don't know how to evaluate that stuff, don't know what you're looking at, even outside of the evil ones, most of them just aren't very good, right? They're not very useful. And if you can't,
there's always going to
be
a bell curve,
Yeah, there's a bell curve for everything. So so if you can't evaluate it, you don't know what they're doing, then you're guaranteed
easy to get ripped
statistically.
Off. It's not.
You're better off having not done it.
Yeah. So there's a lot to it. Like I said, we got 97 days to get this game out. We're moving along at a good pace, and we're definitely on track. It's just a giant pile of stuff, right? So so we're like wrapping this localization stuff. We'll be starting work on achievements pretty soon, fleshing out game content.
We're trying to get our mobile store pages up. That'll be the next big
mobile store pages. So lots of things, and we'll kind of just keep little updates going through the podcast as to where things are at and all that. But I will say we've had pretty funny moments where like Carl from our QA team, he went back to boot up the demo because somebody had some questions about something going on in the demo. And he was like, oh yeah, like the game's changed so much since then. Let me just pop back in there real quick and refresh my memory. And he was just like, holy fuck. I forgot how far the game has come in just the past 3 months, and just how many new things there are, and how like all the different changes to the dudes and the new game modes and like just all this stuff. And even like all the dev tools that we have that we didn't have just 3 months ago. So it's kind of cool to see that pace. And so we got like 3 more months until launch. So I mean, this thing's going to be a banger. I'm pretty confident.
I think so.
But yeah, we just got to get our heads down and just grind it out. So that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. If you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, pick up the demo for How Many Dudes, wishlist the game, and have a good time, and we'll see you at launch. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.